They are the ones you seek when the doctors have given up, when the sickness lingers like a shadow, when the child cries through the night and no medicine works. They are the ones who appear in dreams before you meet them in the waking world, the ones whose touch feels like the earth itself is holding you. Their hands carry the memory of the forests, the rivers, and the ancestors. Their eyes are trained to see not only the wound you show them, but the unseen wound that lies behind it. The wound in the spirit, the imbalance in the destiny. Across Africa, in villages hidden from modern roads and in bustling city streets where their presence is disguised in everyday life, there exists a lineage of men and women whose art is older than time. They are healers, but not healers in the way the West understands the word. They are intermediaries between this world and the next, guardians of laws written not in books, but in wind, water, and bone. They carry knowledge passed down through whispered chants at midnight, through the laying of hands on sacred stones, through visions in the moments before dawn. They know the leaves that can bring down a fever, the roots that can drive out poison, and the powders that can call back a soul hovering near death. But their work is more than curing illness. It is untangling the knots left by curses. It is closing the doorway through which misfortune entered. It is speaking to the spirit of the storm to spare a village, or to the soul of the river to bless a fisherman. For centuries, outsiders have tried to erase them, branding them with names meant to inspire fear, writing laws to ban their craft, mocking their ways as superstition. And yet, the people still go to them. Even those who claim disbelief will send for them in secret, because deep down, they know there are ailments no hospital can touch. Tonight, we open the door into their world. A world where medicine is song, where healing is prayer, and where the hands that heal are guided by the eyes that see far beyond the veil of the visible. Before the borders, before the kingdoms, before the ships came from across the sea, the art of healing was already woven into the fabric of African life. It was not an invention, it was an inheritance. Long before a single word was carved into stone, the people knew which plants bled healing sap when their bark was cut, which roots must be dug before dawn for their power to work, which chants could call the life force back into a fading child. In those early days, the healer was not a separate figure. The healer was the center. In the Nile Valley, priest-physicians of Kemet served in the House of Life, where medicine was married to magic. They treated broken bones with splints made from papyrus reeds, but they also whispered sacred words to drive away the evil breath that caused sickness. They understood that a disease might be born from the bite of an insect, the sting of the sun, or the malice of an enemy spirit. Their scrolls spoke of plants that cured, stones that protected, and rituals that aligned the body with the cosmic order of Ma'at. Far to the south, the Nubian healers were masters of the desert's harsh pharmacy. They could draw medicine from the thorn bushes and mix poultices from mud rich in minerals. They did not separate the physical from the spiritual. To heal the body, one had to speak to the ancestors. Archaeological finds from Nubia reveal not just surgical tools, but amulets carved with protective symbols, proof that the hand and the spirit work together in the art of restoration. In West Africa, long before Ifa verses were committed to memory by the Babalawo, the forests themselves served as the living library of medicine. The Akan healer could walk into the green shadows and return with leaves that calmed the heart, bark that eased childbirth, or seeds that brought visions. Healing was tied to the rhythm of the seasons. The same plant harvested under a full moon carried a different energy than one plucked at noon. Time itself was a healer's tool. In East Africa, the knowledge of plants intertwined with the reading of the stars. The Somali and Ethiopian herbalists charted the night sky, knowing which constellations marked the season for harvesting certain roots. Along the Swahili coast, healers mixed medicine with the tides, letting the ocean's salt cleanse wounds and using shells as protective charms. They called upon spirits of wind and sea to drive away fevers that no herb could cure alone. In the heart of the continent, among the vast Congo basin, the knowledge ran deep as the rainforest itself. Every vine, every blossom, every insect's nest had its place in the healer's mind. The Nganga was trained from youth to listen to the forest as one listens to an elder. Plants were not just plants. They were persons, each with a spirit, each requiring the right greeting before its gift could be taken. Healing was a covenant between the human world and the natural world, and breaking that covenant brought sickness upon the whole community. From the grasslands of southern Africa to the mountains of Ethiopia, one truth echoed. Healing was never just about the body. A fever might be the mark of an offended ancestor. A rash could be the signature of a broken oath. A sudden blindness might be a spirit's warning. To treat the symptom without addressing the cause was to build a house without a foundation. This understanding made the African healer not just a physician, but a seer, a priest, a keeper of cosmic law. And so, before time was written, the healers moved through their communities like living bridges between worlds. Their remedies were leaves and words, smoke and song, water and fire. They held the power to heal the sick, but also to guard the village from unseen dangers. Their legacy is not a chapter in history. It is the root of history itself. And it is from this ancient soil that the most powerful healers of Africa still rise today. In West Africa, the healer is never merely a gatherer of herbs or a dispenser of cures. The healer here stands as the living heart of the community's spiritual defense, the keeper of the people's health, destiny, and relationship with the unseen. In these lands, healing is inseparable from divination, and divination is inseparable from power. To heal the body, one must first understand the will of the spirits. Among the Yoruba of present-day Nigeria, Benin, and Togo, the highest class of healers are the Babalawo, the fathers of secrets. Their training is long and exacting, beginning in childhood. Before they can even touch the sacred instruments of Ifa divination, they must memorize hundreds of Odu Ifa, poetic verses that carry not just moral lessons, but medical knowledge, spiritual remedies, and the histories of the Orisha. The Babalawo works closely with Orunmila, the Orisha of wisdom, who is believed to see the thread of every life from beginning to end. When a patient comes, the Babalawo does not immediately prescribe herbs. He first consults the divining chain or sacred palm nuts, seeking to uncover the spiritual root of the illness. If the divination reveals that a disease is caused by imbalance or offense to an Orisha, the healer prescribes both physical medicine and spiritual offerings. For instance, an ailment of the blood might require a herbal infusion of Agbo alongside a sacrifice to Ogun, the Orisha of iron, whose power runs through the veins of the earth and the body. In the Yoruba worldview, herbs are not merely chemical compounds. They are alive with Asha, the sacred life force that makes all things possible. Among the Akan of Ghana and Ivory Coast, the healer is often called the Okomfo, or traditional priest. The Okomfo's role is deeply entwined with the Abosom, the lesser deities who serve the supreme being. Healing here is not simply a transaction. It is a ritual performance. The healer may enter a trance, allowing an abosom to speak through them, diagnosing the patient in a voice not their own. Herbal preparations are gathered according to the spirit's instructions, and the patient may be required to bathe in rivers, wear specific charms, or follow dietary restrictions until the spirit's will is satisfied. In the kingdom of Dahomey, modern-day Benin, the healers are inseparable from Vodun. Here, illness may be traced to the displeasure of spirits like Legba, the gatekeeper between worlds, or Sakpata, the god of the earth and disease. Sakpata's priests are renowned for their mastery over skin diseases, smallpox, and mysterious afflictions. Their rituals can be both beautiful and fearsome. Drums pounding into the night, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs, and the healer's voice chanting words that have not changed for centuries. Healing in Vodun is often communal. The entire village may take part, ensuring that the patient's spirit is restored alongside their body. In the Mande world, spanning Mali, Guinea, and Senegal, the healer is often also a jelly or griot, for the spoken word itself is medicine. These healers carry not only the knowledge of plants, but the genealogies of families, the histories of kingdoms, and the songs that call the ancestors to stand guard. Among the Mandinka, a healer may mix a potion of roots and leaves, then whisper into it the names of the patient's forebears, awakening the protective force of the lineage. Across West Africa, there is a recognition that some healers are born, not made. These are the ones marked from birth, children who survive strange illnesses or who speak to unseen beings before they can talk to humans. Among the Yu of Ghana and Togo, such children are destined to become Bokor or priest healers, their lives shaped by training in both medicinal knowledge and spiritual warfare. What makes the West African healer so formidable is not just their pharmacological skill, though that alone is vast. It is their command of the invisible, knowing how to untie the knots of a curse, how to send a wandering spirit to rest, how to negotiate with the deities on behalf of a mortal. In the healer's hands, a calabash of herbs becomes a living force, a drumbeat becomes a call to the gods, and a simple stream of water becomes the doorway through which healing flows. Yet their power has always been a double-edged sword. The same knowledge that cures can also harm, and this is why the community surrounds the healer with both reverence and caution. A babalawo who refuses to work for ill is celebrated. One who uses Ifa to bring misfortune is feared. The balance between healing and harm is a constant theme in West African spiritual medicine, and it is this mastery over both sides of the force that has allowed the most powerful healers to endure for centuries. Here, in the lands of Orunmila and Ogun, of the Abazum and the Vodun, the healer's work is as much about protecting the soul as curing the body. Without them, the people say, the village would be naked before the spirits. And so, through wars, through slavery, through the arrival of foreign religions, the healers of West Africa have kept the drumbeat steady, the herbs alive, and the sacred words unbroken. In Central Africa, where the great rivers wind like serpents through endless rainforests, the healer is not only a servant of the living, but a negotiator with the dead. Here they are called Nganga, keepers of the mysteries, masters of the spirit world. To outsiders, the Nganga's work appears as shadow and fire, drums and bone charms. But to the people of the Congo Basin, Angola, Gabon, and beyond, the Nganga is the bridge between the seen and unseen, the one who can speak to the ancestors and compel the spirits to act. The path to becoming a Nganga is not chosen lightly. Some are called through dreams that will not stop, visions of rivers that run red, forests that whisper in human voices, or ancestors standing in doorways of light. Others are chosen through crisis, surviving illnesses that defy explanation or being struck by lightning and living to tell the tale. Once chosen, they are initiated into the Nkisi tradition, the sacred science of spirit-filled objects. An Nkisi may be a carved wooden figure bristling with nails, a calabash filled with river clay and medicinal roots, or a bundle of feathers, stones, and charms. To the uninitiated, these are curiosities. To the Nganga, they are living vessels, contractual agreements with spirits who have agreed to work alongside the healer. When a patient comes, the Nganga does not begin with herbs. They begin with ngombo, divination that may involve tossing shells, bones, or carved sticks onto a mat, each fall revealing the will of the spirits. The Nganga's voice might shift as an ancestor speaks through them, identifying not only the illness but its true cause, whether it be a wandering ghost, a broken taboo, or a curse placed by another. For physical healing, the Nganga turns to the forest, which is seen not as wilderness but as a living pharmacy. Each plant has both a medicinal property and a spiritual identity. A leaf might reduce fever, but it may also calm a restless spirit that causes nightmares. Bark might cleanse the blood, but it also removes the shadow of bad luck. Herbs are harvested with chants, offerings, and precise timing, often at dawn or under moonlight when their spiritual force is strongest. But the Nganga's work goes beyond curing illness. They are the keepers of justice, called upon to reveal thieves, expose liars, or avenge wrongs. In such cases, the Nkisi becomes a warrior, striking at the guilty through spiritual means. This dual role, as healer and punisher, makes the Nganga both revered and feared. Their reputation can stretch across villages and even nations, drawing pilgrims from far away in search of healing or protection. Rituals in Central Africa are sensory storms. Drums pulse like a heartbeat, their rhythms calling specific spirits. The air is thick with the smoke of burning resins. Mpemba, a sacred white clay, is smeared on faces and bodies to mark the presence of the spirit world. In healing ceremonies, the Nganga might circle the patient, rattling a gourd filled with seeds, chanting in a language older than the village itself. Sometimes, the healer will enter a trance, collapsing to the ground as a spirit takes control, speaking through them in a voice that is not theirs. One of the most striking powers of the Nganga is their work with the Bakisi, ancestral spirits who linger near the living. These spirits can bless, guide, or protect. But if ignored or offended, they can also cause misfortune. The Nganga's role is to keep these relationships in balance, ensuring that the ancestors remain allies rather than adversaries. This is why no major event, marriage, planting season, hunting expedition, takes place without consulting the Nganga. Colonial authorities feared them, missionaries condemned them. Traders and slavers knew they could not fully control a people whose healers could rally resistance through spiritual means. In many places, the Nganga's work was driven underground, their Nkisi hidden, their rituals performed in secrecy. Yet they survived, because the forest still spoke, the rivers still carried messages, and the ancestors could not be silenced. Today, the Nganga's presence endures both in rural villages and in bustling cities. They adapt, incorporating modern tools like photographs or written names into their rituals, yet still grounding their power in Nkisi, divination, and the authority of the spirits. In some urban neighborhoods of Kinshasa, Brazzaville, and Luanda, you can still find small shrines covered in cloth and beads, guarded by the Nganga's apprentices. In the diaspora, their influence echoes in Afro-Brazilian quimbanda, Cuban palo mayombe, and other traditions born when Central African captives carried their knowledge across the Atlantic. The Nganga is more than a healer. They are a historian of the soul, a judge between worlds, and a reminder that health is not just the absence of sickness, but the harmony of body, spirit, and community. To sit before an Nganga is to stand at the crossroads of the living and the dead, to feel the pulse of the earth itself, and to know that healing is not an act of medicine alone. It is an act of power. In Southern Africa, healing is not only about mending wounds or curing fevers. It is about restoring the thread that ties a person to their ancestors, their land, and the balance of the natural world. Here, the most powerful healers are the Sangoma, spiritual doctors chosen not by human decision but by ancestral decree. Their calling is a summons that cannot be refused. It begins with dreams, vivid, insistent visions of rivers that run uphill, serpents made of lightning, or the voices of the dead calling your name. For the chosen, these dreams do not fade with the morning sun. They deepen, becoming more urgent until the person falls ill in a way no ordinary medicine can cure. The only remedy is to accept the path and begin training. The Sangoma's training is a journey of transformation. It may last years, during which the apprentice, called a Thwasa, lives under the strict guidance of an elder Sangoma. They learn not only about medicinal plants, but also about the bones, the sacred tools of divination. These bones are not just animal remains. They are a collection of objects, shells, stones, beads, coins, and carved bones, each one a messenger that speaks when cast upon the mat. Reading them is not a matter of logic. It is a conversation with the ancestors. The bones fall in patterns that reveal illness, misfortune, hidden enemies, and the paths to resolution. Sangomas are not only healers of people, but healers of the land itself. In the dry and unpredictable climate of parts of southern Africa, they often work alongside rainmakers, a class of spiritual specialists whose rituals ensure the balance of water and life. Among the most renowned rainmakers are the Mojaji, the rain queens of the Balobedu people in South Africa. These queens, descended from a royal line, are believed to command the clouds themselves, bringing gentle rains to nourish crops or withholding them to punish wrongdoing. Their ceremonies, shrouded in secrecy, blend prayer, dance, song, and offerings to the spirits of the sky. When the rain falls after their rituals, it is not seen as coincidence, but as the fulfillment of a covenant between the people and the spirit world. The Sangoma's healing repertoire is vast. They prepare decoctions from roots that cleanse the blood, leaves that draw out fevers, and barks that calm troubled minds. But herbs alone are not enough. Healing in this tradition often requires ceremonies that call upon ancestral spirits to realign a person's destiny. In a healing dance, the Sangoma may move in rhythmic steps around a fire, accompanied by the beat of drums and the high piercing sound of whistles. Sometimes the healer enters a trance, allowing an ancestor to speak directly through them, advising the patient and their family. One of the most sacred duties of the Sangoma is Ukubuyisa Idlozi, the calling back of a wandering spirit. If someone's life feels empty, cursed, or directionless, it may be because their spiritual double has strayed or been captured by hostile forces. The Sangoma undertakes rituals to retrieve it, restoring the person's vitality and luck. In cases of death, the Sangoma also guides the spirit of the deceased to the land of the ancestors, ensuring they do not become restless ghosts. The rainmakers, too, work beyond the physical. In times of drought, they gather community members for ceremonies that can last days. The air becomes heavy with the scent of burning herbs. Women sing songs that have been passed down for generations, while men beat drums that seem to speak in thunder's own voice. Sacred beer and milk are poured onto the earth as offerings, and in some traditions, black and white animals are sacrificed to represent the union of opposing forces, night and day, male and female, dry season and wet season. When the clouds finally gather, people dance under the first drops, welcoming not just water, but the renewal of life itself. Colonial authorities once branded these healers as sorcerers, fearing the influence they held over the people. Missionaries condemned them, calling their work superstition. Yet the Sangoma and rainmakers survived because they are woven into the fabric of their communities. In modern cities, you can find them working from modest rooms, their mats rolled up in corners until a client arrives. Many now incorporate elements of Christianity into their work, praying in both ancestral and biblical languages, blending traditions rather than abandoning them. Their reach has spread far beyond southern Africa. In Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Botswana, and Swaziland, the role of Sangomas and rainmakers remains vital. Even among those who live abroad, dreams often send them home to consult these healers. Across the diaspora, elements of their practice live on in music, dance, and rituals that still call the rain and the ancestors. To stand in the circle of a Sangoma or to witness a rainmaking ceremony is to feel the sky and earth meeting in the human heart. It is to understand that healing is not an isolated act, but the restoration of harmony between all forces, seen and unseen. And when the first rains fall, or when a patient walks away cured after months of suffering, the people know that the hands of the Sangoma and the rainmaker are not merely human hands. They are the hands of the ancestors themselves, still working through the living to keep the world in balance. In the story of African healing, the women are not simply background figures. They are the roots from which the tree of medicine grows. Long before any written records, before the intrusion of foreign religions, before colonial borders carved through the land, it was the women who knew which leaves could coax a sick child back to health, which roots could ease a woman's labor pains, and which chants could send away the shadow of death. In nearly every African culture, there have been women whose power was not measured by crowns or armies, but by the countless lives they saved and the spirits they appeased. Among the Akan of Ghana, there is the tradition of the Obosomfuo, female healers who serve the Abazum, the gods of the land and rivers. These women are mediums as well as herbalists. Their work is as much about listening to the spirits as it is about grinding roots. They wear white cloth, their heads often shaved, to signify purity, and they work in shrines filled with clay pots of medicine, calabashes of sacred water, and carved stools that are said to carry ancestral presence. When the drums call during a healing ceremony, it is not only the sick who are healed. The entire community is drawn into the rhythm, reaffirming the ties between people, land, and spirit. In East Africa, among the Swahili-speaking coastal communities, Waganga Wajati, traditional women healers, are keepers of both physical and spiritual medicine. Many are skilled in the Mtiwa Pepo tradition, where they negotiate with possessing spirits that cause illness or misfortune. These healers are diplomats between the human and spirit worlds, offering food, incense, and song to the unseen, restoring balance in the lives of their patients. They pass their knowledge from mother to daughter, sometimes guarded as a secret, sometimes offered freely to any young woman who shows the gift. Southern Africa, too, holds the power of women healers in high esteem. Here, many Sangomas are women, chosen by dreams and visions to serve as the bridge between the living and the ancestors. In the homestead, the Sangoma's hut is a place of warmth and danger. Warmth because it holds the medicines that have saved countless lives. Danger because within those walls, spirits walk, whisper, and sometimes take possession. The women Sangomas carry bones in beaded bags, herbs strung together like necklaces, and the authority to command rain, banish curses, or call the wandering soul of a lost person back into their body. In North Africa, the legacy of the Berber women healers still lingers in the mountains and deserts. Known for their mastery of herbal pharmacology, they understand the rhythms of the seasons and the secrets of plants that grow in the most unforgiving landscapes. They blend Islamic supplications with pre-Islamic magical traditions, inscribing protective verses on strips of leather worn close to the body. Women here are also midwives, guiding new life into the world with whispered blessings and protective amulets. Among the Yoruba, women are central to the healing tradition of Aje, a spiritual force tied to creation, fertility, and power. Some women are born with this force blazing within them, giving them the ability to heal or to destroy. In Ifa tradition, certain priestesses serve Osun, the goddess of rivers, fertility, and love, whose waters are said to carry the power to restore health and beauty. These priestesses combine herbal medicine with sacred songs and river rituals, calling on Oshun to wash away the affliction. In some cases, the patient is taken directly into the river, bathed and prayed over, as an offering of honey, flowers, and copper is made to the goddess. What unites these women healers across Africa is not only their knowledge of the physical body, but their authority in matters of spirit. They understand that illness often begins as an imbalance in the unseen world, an offended ancestor, a broken taboo, a curse born of envy, and that to heal the body, one must first heal the soul. Their tools are as varied as Africa itself. Clay pots filled with rainwater and herbs, brass bells that summon spirits, drums that open the gates between worlds, and chants that can change the course of a person's fate. Colonial rule tried to erase them. Missionaries branded them witches, while colonial governments outlawed many of their rituals. Yet they endured, adapting where they needed to, hiding their sacred practices in plain sight. In churches, they sang hymns that doubled as healing chants. In kitchens, they brewed tea that was, in truth, powerful medicine. Today, these women stand as living archives of African medicine and spirituality. In cities and villages, they are consulted by politicians, business leaders, and mothers with sick children alike. In the diaspora, their knowledge is being sought out once more, as people search for the roots of wellness in a world increasingly disconnected from nature. The women healers remain what they have always been, mothers of medicine and spirit, guardians of life who walk with one foot in the human world and one foot in the realm of the ancestors. When the colonial powers came to Africa, they did not only come for gold, ivory, and land. They came for the mind, the spirit, and the memory of the people. And in their eyes, the healers, the diviners, the herbalists, the midwives, the rainmakers were dangerous. These were the ones who could not be easily conquered, because their authority came not from foreign crowns, but from the ancestors, from the earth, from the gods themselves. In the early years of colonization, missionaries often spoke of saving souls, but their mission was equally to erase the spiritual frameworks that bound communities together. The healers stood in the way of this mission. In British-controlled Nigeria, for example, certain herbalists and priests were banned from performing public rituals. Shrines were burned, sacred drums confiscated, and in some cases, healers were arrested under newly crafted witchcraft ordinances. The aim was simple: sever the people from the spiritual leaders who held their cultural memory. In southern Africa, the Sangomas faced relentless attack. Christian missionaries branded them agents of the devil, urging converts to destroy their bones, beads, and herbs. Yet many Sangomas simply shifted their methods, conducting rituals in the dead of night, disguising chants as Christian hymns, and using church gatherings as cover for spirit possession ceremonies. Some even worked under the guise of prophets within the emerging African independent churches, blending Christian scripture with the same divination and herbal knowledge passed down from their grandmothers. In Central Africa, the colonial administration feared the Nganga not only for their spiritual influence, but for their political sway. The Nganga could mobilize entire villages with a single ritual, and so their gatherings were seen as seeds of rebellion. The Belgian Congo authorities, in particular, banned many public healing ceremonies, forcing the Nganga underground. But the spirits could not be legislated away. Patients continued to seek them in secret, following hidden footpaths through the forest to secluded shrines where the smell of burning herbs still carried the promise of restoration. In East Africa, the Swahili coast's Waganga wa Jadi also faced pressure. With the coming of Islam centuries earlier, many healers had already integrated Quranic verses into their practice. But under colonial rule, the authorities sought to regulate them through licensing systems, making it illegal to treat without permission from the government. This reduced some to working in secrecy, while others migrated to rural areas far from the watchful eyes of colonial officers. The attack was not always through force. Sometimes it came through slow erosion. Western medicine was elevated as the only real healing, while traditional practices were dismissed as backward superstition. Young people were encouraged, sometimes compelled, to attend mission schools, where they were taught to mock or fear the work of their own grandmothers and uncles. This strategy sought to cut the chain of transmission, ensuring the sacred knowledge of healing would die with the elders. And yet, it did not die. Across the continent, the healers adapted, hiding their medicines in kitchen cupboards, their chants in church songs, their shrines behind the facades of ordinary homes. Some took on new identities, masquerading as farmers, traders, or seamstresses, while still answering the quiet knock of someone desperate for healing. The power that came from the ancestors was not something that could be dismantled with laws or sermons. It lived in the blood, in the dreams, in the whispered instructions given by spirits to those chosen to carry the work forward. By the time colonial rule began to crumble in the mid-20th century, many of these healers emerged from hiding, not as relics of a forgotten past, but as proof of survival. They had walked through fire and remained whole, carrying the same leaves, the same bones, the same sacred words as their forebears. They were living proof that the most powerful healers in Africa could not be silenced, only driven into the shadows, until the time was right to step back into the light. In the early years after independence, many African healers emerged cautiously, still carrying the memories of persecution, but the tide was turning. Across villages, towns, and cities, the very traditions once forced into the shadows began to step into the open again. The same drum beats that were silenced under colonial rule now called people to healing gatherings in daylight. The same leaves and roots once hidden from the authorities were now displayed proudly in open markets. The healers were returning, not as the feared and hunted, but as respected pillars of cultural heritage. Some remained firmly in their ancestral villages, serving the people who had always known their worth. In the forests of Ghana, Akamfo priests performed the same rituals their forefathers had taught them, summoning the spirits of the Abozam to cleanse, bless, and protect. In the rural valleys of South Africa, Sangomas danced in vibrant beadwork and skins, their trances drawing crowds not for secrecy, but for celebration. And in the highlands of Kenya, Waganga Wajadi continued to blend herbal medicine with Islamic prayers, bridging centuries of tradition in a single healing session. But others began to travel. The 1970s and 80s saw the rise of African healers who crossed borders, not to abandon their traditions, but to share them with the world. Figures like South Africa's Credo Mutwa, a Zulu Sanusi, seer and healer, became internationally known for his vast knowledge of African cosmology, healing arts, and oral history. In West Africa, Yoruba Babalawo priests began conducting Ifa divination for diaspora communities in the Americas, reconnecting those cut off by slavery to the spiritual roots of their ancestors. As global interest in alternative medicine and indigenous knowledge grew, the healers found new audiences. Universities and research institutes began studying their plant-based medicines, confirming what communities had always known, that African pharmacology holds some of the most potent remedies on earth. Some healers were invited to speak at international conferences, where they stood before scientists and spoke of the plants that can stop infection, the chants that can calm the mind, the spiritual cleansings that can break years of misfortune. And then came the diaspora's embrace. In cities like New York, London, and São Paulo, African healers were welcomed not only by Africans abroad, but by people from every culture seeking something modern medicine could not give them: connection, meaning, and healing for the soul. Ceremonies once confined to village courtyards were now held in urban apartments, community centers, and even parks. In these spaces, the spirits of Africa moved as freely as they had centuries ago, crossing oceans not as captives, but as honored guests. This return has not been without controversy. Some criticize the commercialization of sacred practices, fearing that what was once a calling is being turned into a brand. Others worry that the secrecy that once protected these traditions is being lost in the age of social media. But for many, this visibility is a victory, a sign that the chains of colonial suppression have been broken and that the healers can once again walk openly with their heads held high. Today, whether in a mud-walled shrine deep in the bush or a consultation room in the heart of a city, the most powerful healers in Africa continue their work. They are living proof that what is rooted in the spirit cannot be erased. They are the hands that heal and the eyes that see, reaching now not just across the village, but across the world. They are still here, not as relics of a vanished age, but as living, breathing guardians of a knowledge older than any book. You may not see them unless you know how to look. They may pass you in a crowded market, their hands carrying the scent of crushed leaves and sacred oils. They may sit quietly in the corner of a family gathering, saying little, but watching everything. Sometimes they are the elder who knows which herb can calm a newborn's restless cry. Sometimes they are the woman who disappears into the forest at dawn and returns with a cure for an illness that no hospital could name. The world has changed, but their calling has not. In cities buzzing with technology and villages lit only by firelight, they still walk among us, bridging the seen and the unseen, the body and the spirit. They do not heal only wounds of flesh. They heal the cracks in destiny, the burdens of the heart, the heaviness of the soul. When storms threaten, they speak to the winds. When rivers run low, they pray to the waters. When a child's life hangs in the balance, they call upon ancestors who have been dead for centuries, but never truly gone. These are the keepers of balance in a world that so often forgets the sacred. They are the unbroken thread between the living and the dead, between the past and the future. And though the old ways have been attacked, forbidden, and mocked, they have endured, not because they were written down, but because they were lived, breathed, and guarded with devotion. If you listen closely, you can still hear them, in the rustle of the leaves as the healer searches for the right plant, in the low hum of a chant carried on the wind, in the silence that follows a prayer, when something in the air shifts and you know, without being told, that the work has been done. The most powerful healers in Africa are not gone. They still walk among us, and as long as there are wounds to mend, destinies to restore, and spirits to set free, their hands will never be empty, and their eyes will never close.